Hi, this is Professor Barry Brennan. I'm here again talking to my small group communication class, and we are continuing our discussion about leadership and the small group. And we're going to move right into how do we know what a leader is? Like, we're going to look at the difference between a designated leader versus an emergent leader. And you'll understand what I mean in a minute. Let's take a look at that slide. So, there's two different kinds of leader. That designated, and we talked about all the sources of power and influence, someone who's designated, appointed, hired, or elected for that. They've been determined that they're going to be the leader. Okay, appointed, elected, assigned as the role of leader by the group or populace. Okay, there's that. And you could have had this. You could have designated someone to be the leader in your group. You could decide it as 5 or 6 of you, and you all voted for whoever it is. Okay. And as we said before, this leader is considered legitimate. Why? Because you all agreed that this person was going to be your leader. Okay, so there by the popular vote, or by the, in this case we have popular vote, or electoral college. Man, it's getting late at night. Electoral college. That's how we decide who's going to be the president of the United States as we come up on this election. But let's look at what the emergent leader is, because that actually is going to be more interesting and might be far more applicable to the experience you're having in your group. So the emergent leader starts out as someone in a group. They're just like everyone else. They come in there, they have the same anxiety, they have the same, do the same tension thing in the beginning, where they're like the primary tension when you're overly polite and you don't really know each other, and you all go, going through all the stages, just equal status. It's not less than, not more than, not anything. And then what happens is, over time, through doing the work, through doing the tasks, through doing the meeting agendas, through doing the discussions, the Zoom sessions, all the work that you all are putting into it, that person starts to emerge as kind of the leader in the group. And no one said, you're going to be the leader. They just kind of emerge naturally. Okay? And when I say it's situational and contextual, it means that that leader in this situation, in your particular situation, has emerged as a leader because these personalities, these people that are part of the group, have created that situation for that person's qualities as a leader for that group to emerge. They might be in it, they might leave that group, go a different group, and they wouldn't be the leader. So no, it's very situational and very contextual. And some of the characteristics that the emergent leader has and how someone becomes that leader. One characteristic we call self-monitoring. Another word for that would be self-regulating. So this is a person who comes across as a mature individual, doesn't overreact, doesn't underreact, responds accordingly, responds better than reacts. It's probably a better word. They're thoughtful, but they're sensitive. So they are concerned about how people are feeling, but they also know that they have to get some work done. So they're able to have both sides of their personality. They're self-monitoring. They also are in control of their emotions, in control of their feelings and their reactions to things. They're also seen in the group as someone who is smarter than the average bear. They're intelligent. They're smart. They come across smart. They are able to communicate in an intelligent way. And you can tell that they're definitely above average. And generally speaking, the person is extroverted. Why? Because that's the only way you get to really know someone, is by communicating with them. So generally, an extroverted personality is more communicative, more comfortable being in a situation with a lot of people, talking to them. It doesn't mean that they're the center of attention. It just means that they are able to say, they're not the person that waits to be what's the word I want? Introduced. Waits to be introduced to someone. They introduce themselves. right? So if they're in a situation, they go, "Hi, I'm Barry Brennan, and I teach at West Hills College, Lemoore. I'm a communication instructor." Rather than waiting in a group, I would just say, "Hi, this is who I am." Okay, so that's the kind of person they are. They're more extroverted. I already talked about their listening skills are really good. They're able to be caring and listening, also able to like talk, right? And they're able to identify, this is another key factor, they're able to identify and match the task with the personality of others. So they have to be a good listener, right? They have to be someone who's been paying attention to what's happening in the group, who's doing what they're talking about, what they're saying, what their interests are, what their background is, right? They're not going to say, the person who's the quietest member of the group, they're going to say, "You know what? I think that you should be the monitor in the group discussion." That would probably not be a good use for that personality. They'd be better off, probably they don't want the attention. Maybe they're quiet and they just prefer not to have the attention, and maybe they like working alone a lot. Maybe they are the ones that create the PowerPoint, and that's their work, which is just as important as someone who's going to monitor a discussion. Okay, so that's what the emergent leader is able to see these things. I want you to start thinking about, this will be a question, is I want you to start thinking about who is the emergent leader in your group. Could be you, but who is it? Moving on. Let's look at some myths we have about leadership. This is a myth. No one is born with a genetic trait toward leadership. Okay? Leaders are not born, they're made. You've heard that saying, right? Leaders not born, they're made. It's situational and contextual. Let's just take some of the leaders that we've heard of in our lifetime, right? We know that in any other time, President Barack Obama would have never been the president of the United States. That the time in this country was ready for that, right? And you can say the same thing about President Trump. The timing of President Trump's leadership is the timing right now. And Martin Luther King, the voice of Martin Luther King, would not be heard in the same way if it was heard now, right? He was there for a particular time. He may not have been a leader now. What we talk about in terms of, and how we talk about things, and who's running for president. Like Kanye West is running for president. He's a musician and a producer, a music producer. Okay, like that probably wouldn't have happened. To me, that's silly, but that's just my opinion. That probably wouldn't have happened 50 years ago. Okay, all right. There's an ideal leadership style. There is not. Different leaders, different qualities match different times. And I gave you already some examples of that, right? If you think of Martin Luther King and his style, that nonviolent, the way he, very spiritual, very religious style may not work right now. If we had a Martin Luther King, that may not be the style that works for right now. That's why Black Lives Matter movement works right now for civil rights for African Americans. So there's no ideal leadership style, and leaders get others to do the work for them. That leaders are not lazy. The best type of leader, and I want you to think about this in terms of your boss or your supervisor or even your teachers. The best type of leader is someone who's been there before, someone who's done the work. How are they going to lead on something that they've never done themselves? So they're not doing it to get the work done. It's just that once you know how to do something, you're evolving as a person, right? So that's how we evolve as people. Part of maybe our qualities are knowing, if we are the leader, ability to, again, give duties or give tasks to other people, right? To facilitate that, to disperse out those kinds of duties and tasks to other people, knowing, because you know how to do them. So it doesn't mean you get others, so you don't just sit there and watch them do it. You have your own work to do. All right, moving on. Leadership styles. So we have what's called the autocratic leadership style. That is that style that's like kind of my way or the highway. You can think of people that are dictators, people that governments that are dictators, or they have a autocracy, or not even necessarily oligarchy, but someone who makes all the decisions. So it's up to the leader at all times. Democratic leadership means the style, generally speaking, is they're looking for consensus. They want to make everyone happy when they want to consider everyone's needs. Laissez-faire leadership is almost like no leadership at all. The style is like, you know what, I'm here, but you guys can do whatever you want. It's kind of not really, it's really a hands-off type leadership. Laissez-faire is known for being hands-off. Transactional leadership. I used to say that President Trump was a transactional leadership, but I'm going to not use him. You could maybe think of him this way, but I want you to think of like a person in business, okay? A person in business who's a leader in business is oftentimes their style is transactional. It means if you do this, I'll do this for you. There's a negotiation about it. Transaction means a leadership is you're a leader through that. Your style is to be transactional, is to say, I'll give you, I want this done. So if you do this, I'll do this for you, right? Like a transaction, like a negotiation. Then there's what's called transformational style. Transformational style is the focus of that leader. The focus is on making change for the people that leader is feeling responsible for or caring for. Okay, the focus is transforming their lives, transforming their vision, transforming the way they think about something. So changing it completely. Transformational leadership style. The focus is on definitely on their audience, the people that they're leading. Charismatic leader style. It's really someone who that relies completely on their popularity and their personality to be a leader. Like they may not have any other things, but it's really they lead because people follow them because they're so likable and they've got so much charisma and so much personality, and people just want to be around them, and they're funny and you just like them. And a lot of times they're I want to say celebrities are like that, right? That are in leadership positions, and they're really likable, and they have this charisma about them, so people want to do what they do or follow them. And it changes over time. Again, it's situational and contextual. In order to lead, leaders must have followers. Okay, so a leader is dependent, right? It's going to move right into our theory that we're going to talk about, distributive leadership theory. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to stop here and we're going to move to the next video, and we're going to talk about this. But this is absolutely true. In order for someone to be a leader, you have to have people willing to follow you. And it doesn't follow, I'm going to say in quotations, because follow could mean you could be democratic and you can lead as like you're going to show them how to do stuff, but you still make sure that everyone is in agreement. So you can still be a leader. It doesn't mean they're following like blindly or they don't have any ideas of their own. It doesn't mean that. It just means there has to be that someone is leading. If you ever look at, I have the geese here. If you ever have watched geese, and we have geese all over the valley, right? The Canadian geese. And I learned this from my wife, that geese, you know, one of the things that you'll notice if you ever watch them in the air, they do that, you know, that part triangle thing, right? Like that V, inverted V. And usually at some point there's like a goose is up here at the front. Well, while the goose is up front, the goose is honking. They're honking, and they honk. One of the purposes of their honk apparently is to communicate. They're the leader, and they're just a leader for a while because they take turns, is to communicate to them for them. They got this to keep going, like to communicate, to cheer them on. So if you notice in geese, there is a leader as they're flying, but they take turns. Like someone gets tired and they fall back and someone else comes up and is a leader. So it's never like the same leader in the V. And the V is always, sometimes it's kind of like this, sometimes kind of like this. It changes. Sometimes there's more than one V going on. I just noticed that the other day. But it's interesting. Something to consider.